Hi guys and welcome to Desi Dutch. This is your host Amjay, and today in day 9 I welcome Asad Rafi to the podcast. Asad Rafi lives in Paris, France,
Yep.
and he's going to be telling us a little bit about how he's handling his lockdown days and how it's going on in Paris. Asad Rafi, welcome to Desi Dutch.
Thank you so much for having me here in this very wonderful line with with your other friends like Ahmed and Akbar. So I'm very privileged to be here among this wonderful lineup. And yeah, I think it's a wonderful initiative you have started for people to understand how they're dealing with this unprecedented crisis, because it's something that has at least never happened in our lifetime.
Exactly. I think it's just to get to know the people, get to know how they're doing it, and also just to catch up, to be honest, right? So
Yes.
tell us a little bit about yourself, Asa. Tell us how's it going.
Well, about myself, well, we both did our undergrad in Bilkent, as you know, obviously. Now I'm doing my master's in Paris at Sciences Po in international security. So even this topic of coronavirus and all over the world is something that we have been studying very closely. So there are a lot of things in it that we probably knew it was going to get this bad, but again, I think there was no reaction or action, at least as well, by the government. There was no leadership to take any action to make to deal with this, and now it's too late. I mean, there's still time to do something, but each day you're making it worse by months when so it's a stressful situation.
Yeah, it is. And like you, I had another guest on the show who also said about the same thing that people knew it was coming. And for a layman like me who does not follow the news or does not know really the behind the scenes that's happening too much, what do you mean by we knew it was coming? He told me that in the US, since January, people had an idea that this might go out of like proportion. The government knew. There was news about some government officials saying that we were discussing about this epidemic, this pandemic since January. So, what do you think about that? Do you agree with that statement? Do you think other countries also had this kind of, you can say, lead time to react?
There was a report that said that in January, and like in the beginning of Jan, the intelligence agencies in the US, because it's a duty of these intelligence agencies in every country to look at the future threats, look at the threats that will be to your national sovereignty and integrity. So it's their job to study these things. So they knew, because how globalized our world is, like even though the world is smaller than ever, it's very connected. So they knew that if something is starting in China, and if it's something this dangerous, it will eventually get to the US. So they when I say they knew about it, they knew that we need to prepare right now. We need to take some actions right now, which was something, I think, when they told President Trump, as we all know, he he just, even right now, he's still talking about how everything will be fine by Easter, which is
Yeah,
in April.
he's willing to open the like
Yeah.
end the lockdown in 15 days, while two-thirds of the country is still not even in lockdown. So what is
Even
exactly in lockdown that you want to open in 15 days?
no, it's crazy. I mean, even today I was reading that 3.3 million people have filed for unemployment.
Unemployment claims. Yeah.
So it's a huge shock.
Yeah,
So
did you see that graph though? Oh, I saw that
yeah,
graph.
it's like this.
It was under a million for the past 60 years. Under a million, and suddenly it goes to 3.3 million. It is something difficult, but in my opinion, like as much as I follow the financial markets and the economic, you can say the reports and news, this does seem like a very difficult time. But just
If you
financially speaking, it's really not that. I believe it's really not that broken as maybe it was 2008 because you can see this coming compared to 2008.
yes, I mean, this is not an example of, I think, this is not an economic crisis like the 2008 one, right? But this is more like a failure of um, how would I say, multilateralism, countries cooperating with each other. Like, for instance, whenever the recent Great Recession, they were able to control it because there was some cooperation between the United States and the European states, and they got together with the G7 and G20, and they were able to come up with a lot of different plans, and they were able to get, ahead with it. The world GDP, I think, dropped by only 1% with the Great Recession.
Mm.
It dropped by 26% during the Great Depression. So this is the fear right now, that this what's happening right now, it might get even worse. It might turn into the Great Depression. And the reason it might turn into one is because everyone is thinking about themselves.
Yeah.
Again, a situation of ourselves in this coronavirus situation as well, because people are always thinking about themselves, and they're not thinking about the overall society, that you might be going out and infecting, I don't know, 100 people, and you're like, oh, that's life.
I'm young. I'm not gonna get affected, so why should I stop living my
Why
life?
should I care? And
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, in the past, the Americans were always the one, because they were one of the strongest, or the strongest country in the world, and they were always leading everyone else. But right now, there's a lack of leadership. The American president has not even once talked about a cooperation with other allies or other partners, that we are going to fight this together. No, there's no such thing. That's the problem. That's why it looks like that it might, be a huge issue, because even in Europe right now, they have, for the first time, I think, in a long time, they have closed the borders. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously there's a good reason behind that, but not than that. But the policies they're taking, they're all policies are national policies. They're not a EU policy yet.
Yeah, it's all protectionism, right? So
So
like that's what I actually wanted to discuss with you. Protectionism, right? There has been quite a lot of populism and the rise of nationalism, protectionism going on all around the world. And as you said, really, I think it's profound what you said about how in 2008 the only reason we could come out of it was because people understood that the global supply chain, the global trade is all intertwined, and the only way to make it work is to still stay intertwined.
I mean, this will even push them further towards that fear, because nationalism and protectionism, they feed on fear. So with unemployment that goes up, with unemployment, with no resources and thing, you're heading towards that, like, Last of Us, or that kind of thing, where you're it's just you against the world. So
Yeah,
that's
and
not
it
something we
is it
want.
is weird because the only way to, as you said, the only way to fight is to do it together. I talked about this with Mother Sanwar as well on yesterday's show, that US is making their own vaccines. China is doing conducting their own research. The European Union is conducting their own research. If they pool their resources together, I think
Exactly.
it would be faster, much faster to find the solution than to just independently doing it in their own silos. But no one is getting it. It's so weird how we've progressed so far.
Vaccine is the next step. They're not even sharing the data with each other about how many cases there are, how many people are recovered. They're not even sharing the basics with each other. Vaccine is a next step.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. But one thing I wanted to talk to you about. So this is how the world is looking like. What is France looking like right now?
Well, France, it's in a lockdown right now. It's, I think, a week. Last week on Tuesday, President Macron, he came on the TV, and actually, a few days before that, he came on TV as well, and he was like, hey, look, guys, it's a big problem coming up, and we all need to social distance, and we all need to be very careful. But the French people are French. Just the next after the few days, there were pictures of Paris, like people were sitting in parks right next to each other. Everyone was like chilling outside because apparently the weather was nice. And then he came on the TV again, and he was rather pissed, and he was like, this is getting out of hands. And it was an interesting speech, because he said in his speech 8 times that we are at war. Nous sommes en guerre. That means, like, we are at war. He kept repeating that 8 times. So he was trying to imprint that image that, this is something very serious. You're not taking it seriously. And then he imposed a 15 days lockdown. So that 15 days lockdown is basically only the essentials are open, like, grocery stores. Apparently, tobacco shops are also essentials in France. And,
Pharmacies. petrol stations, stuff like that, probably.
Yes,
Yeah.
pharmacies, petrol stations, and baguette shops, because French can't live without that. So they are open as well. So um, the case right now is that if I have to go out, they even actually imposed a new thing yesterday, that I have to carry a paper with me, which is on the Ministry of Interior website. I have to write my name, I have to write my address, and I have to tick on the reason why I'm going outside. Then I have to write the time and the date, and I sign it, and then I can go out. So this is in the case that if a police, because there's around 100,000 police officers right now, I think all over France, that they're taking care of this soft curfew. And if they stop you, they will ask you, like, where are you heading? So you show that document. So either you can go out, if you have a sick relative, which is wouldn't be in our case, but in other French citizens, or you're going out for groceries, or you're going to a pharmacy, or you really have to go to work, or you're traveling and leaving the country. So in that paper, now they imposed a new restriction, which is the reason you write your address and the time you go out, that you cannot be outside for more than 1 hour, and you cannot go further than 1 kilometer of your perimeter of where you live. So that's even more restrictive, that they want people to not move at all. Like
Yeah, but I think, yeah, I think that's a very nice way.
that 1 kilometer radius, that's where you
Yeah,
can sit.
it is a good way to have contain like containment, and not just that. I think this is a very wonderful way to actually just keep track of how many people are actually following it or not following it. It is a little bit towards the side of too much information and too much containment, but at this point, I think it's necessary, because as the French, you're saying, as the French people are, the Dutch are also like exactly like this. The same story happened with us here last week on. Monday or something, the prime minister shows up. He's like, okay, everything is going to be closed down. You're not restricted. So like I go out for a jog every day for 20 minutes, and people are outside walking their dogs, everything. There's no as strict lockdown as the one in France and Spain and Italy yet, but they're just like, okay, it's everything is closed. Essentials are open. Food is open. Everything else is closed. You can go out and everything, but please try to maintain social distance and just try to be safe. 2 days, 3 days later, the weather starts getting better. You see pictures of the beach in Den Haag full. You see pictures of people and near the countryside, and the prime minister comes back on the national TV, and he's pissed, and he then imposes a fine now. So if more than two people are hanging out together now, if there's a third person, a fine can starting for 400 euros can go up to an uncapped amount for that for all three of them if three people are hanging out together now. So this is the measures that they have to take, because people aren't really taking it seriously. It's just
They, you're right. They're the same in France as well. Like if you're far away from your house for no specific reason, you can be. I think first it started from 30 euros to 135. Now it starts from 135 and it might go up to 400 euros. So people either
but
you save some money or you stay at home.
yeah, I think this is the only way to really hit them where it hurts, right? Because if it's hitting your pocket, you might really understand, because it's hitting your health and you're not really caring about it. So frankly, you don't care about your health. So the only
You're
other
right.
way.
Even in his speech, Macron was very strict especially to youngsters. It was like, you will be fine, but you should be concerned about your grandparents, your parents, the elderly are the one at the risk. Like if you look at Italy, I mean, it's haunts me every day. I mean, I think the cases might cross 500,000 official
The
cases.
deaths have crossed 7,500. That's
Yeah.
double of China. Double
Yeah.
of
I'm
China.
talking about global cases might cross 500,000, but the important thing to remember is these are official numbers.
Yeah, yeah.
Unofficial numbers, my just estimate is that it might be beyond 1 million,
1 billion.
because the confirmed cases are those who are tested and then they're recorded.
Definitely.
There's so many people out there who have it. Like in the case of the US might cross Italy in few days. You will see it.
Yeah, I'm generally scared because people, first of all, there's a lot of population, there's a lot of fluid movement between the states, and the fact that the authorities are really not that strict right now. And it's just kind of scary that they're taking it so lightly. I have a friend of mine who's going to come on tomorrow to talk about the US, so we'll have much of an expert opinion on the ground realities happening there. But for now, moving back to our conversation, we know what's happening in France, we know what's happening in the world. What's happening with you? So I want to understand how Asad Rafi is passing his days. I see some equipment in the kitchen. I can see you are still cooking. You're enjoying a little bit of your own passion. So talk to us throughout your day. What do you think? What goes on?
Well, last week actually my university was suspended as well, but this week our online classes are taking place again. So first, I think in the beginning, when I heard that classes will be on Zoom, I have never experienced online classes before. And, we are the generation where we spend all our time in classrooms. And in the beginning, it was like, it's not going to be comfortable doing classes like that. But actually, it has started from Monday. And so far, even though you miss the environment of the class, but so far the lectures, the quality of the lectures has been almost the same. You still, absorb the same kind of knowledge. So I've been impressed with that. So it's all online classes going on. So I'm getting used to that. But living, like I live here alone as well. And it gives me time to, like, I'm writing my thesis as well. So it gives me some space to work on that. I also have time to cook, which I love. So, but again, I live alone. So I cook and that lasts for 2 days. So that's good as well. I don't have to cook every night. But when I go, because I live in like this gated complex. It's a residence of all the students here. So every now and then I go out for a walk, and like sometimes I just peek out at towards the road, and it's empty, silence. The air, the pollution has gone down. I mean, it's one positive sign. I mean, in this very bleak time, but you go out and the air is so fresh, and you finally can breathe, unless you have coronavirus. Sorry, that joke. Uh, but um, you go out and you take a walk because we are allowed to do that in our complex. So other than that, like isolation itself is not, I don't, me well. I mean, I'm okay. I'm very comfortable with myself. As I was saying to you earlier, that you have to become if you want to be comfortable with other people, with new people, whoever you meet, first you have to be comfortable with your own self. You have to be comfortable with your thoughts. And I think it's a wonderful time. Sorry, not a wonderful time. Sorry. I mean, it's an opportunity for you to, be alone with your thoughts and see where your mind goes when it's alone. And it's a way for you to understand yourself even better. And people talk about, like the uncertainty over future and everything. I think no one saw this coming. I'm sure you had plans, I had plans for what we were going to do over the summers, but everyone's plan is down the drain now. So it shows you how unpredictable, how uncertain life is. There's also a positive side to it as well, because you might have plans that, but how life might turn out, it might be even better than what you think. So it it it's a sign that tells you to live in the present, to enjoy what you have right now, and just make the most of it instead
Uh,
of worrying too much over the future.
I agree with you completely. There's a big difference between the way you've put it really beautifully or the word YOLO, right? That's not what I want to project to our listeners. That this is not a YOLO moment, because YOLO moment is the people who are actually spreading this virus more. Yeah, right. It's more about that. I feel like I try to consider myself a stoic at heart, right? Things which are in your control are in your control. Things which are not in your control, you don't need to worry about this. Future is not in your control. The past is not in your control anymore. What's in your control is how you react to the present. And right now, being alone with your thoughts, being comfortable with silence as I say, as you said, it's a blessing in disguise. I believe every crisis presents an opportunity, and this is an opportunity for us to learn how to undistract ourselves. this beautiful thing that is in our pocket all the time. It's something that I really do not like. But this thing, this little small 10-inch thing, just ruins our life because it constantly asks us for attention, and it always tries to distract us. Like we have a friend, right? We have a friend, Swas. So we talked to Swas on the, I think it was the first or second episode. And when I was talking to him, I asked him that how is he handling it, and he was like, no, it's very difficult for me because I have, there's nothing to distract myself now, and I cannot sit alone. I cannot sit like doing nothing.
No, I know Suhas.
Yeah, right? And people always consider this a bad thing, that I cannot do. I cannot sit still. I cannot be bored. I believe there is an art in being bored. Boredom is where the creative things happen. I've seen a lot of TED talks about this. That boredom sparks innovation, because when your mind is off thinking about nothing and everything, you suddenly come up with solutions. I'm working into data science, so I'm working from a BI analyst into a data science role right now, and it's a lot of coding involved. And when you're actively doing coding, your head starts hurting, right? Because you can't think about it. But a lot of times I'm just sitting, just resting my eyes and just not thinking about anything, and I go like, aha, I got how to solve it. That happens because you are comfortable with that boredom. And I believe that that's really important for us. So how do you cope with your boredom? Like I meditate, for example. That's what I do. I try to listen to podcasts. I burn through 10 hours of podcast every week. That's how much content I try to digest. I try to read, but that's only when I am about to fall asleep. So like it's a good catalyst for me to fall asleep. But what does Asad Rafi do to pass his time?
um, well, I mean, how I pass my time is basically, luckily, I have a PlayStation. As Akbar was saying, for gamers, it's a wonderful time. So when it's a good, he forced me, not forced me, but he was always pushing me to buy the Battlefront 2. So I ended up buying that during that time, and I was playing it for the last few days. I have, I play FIFA hours, things like that, to keep me busy. But at the same time, I've been catching up on some shows, like The Hunters was on Prime. It was a wonderful show. I recommend that if people are interested in that kind of show, because I really like the World War II and that kind of stuff. So it was very interesting. So I keep myself busy with that, and at the same time, as I told you, like, I'm writing my thesis, so I keep reading on that and keep gaining knowledge on that. So it's a good opportunity at the same time for that. But as I always say, the classes are still going on, so I have to work on that at the same time. But most of the time, I think I deal with boredom by just going back to sleep.
That's a wonderful way to keep, because I cannot. I train myself here in my routine life to sleep not more than 6 hours, 6.5 hours. I would sleep that much. Then in the afternoon or in my commute, I would sleep for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and I'll complete my 7 hours like that. And I was pretty content with it. I was really, I optimized it because I was happy with it. And now there's no commute. So I'm saving 3 hours of my day every day. I have to travel to Amsterdam every day from
Yeah,
Eindhoven.
I
So that's
remember.
1.5 hour going, 1.5 hour coming back. So now I have 3 hours, and now I can't do anything. So I fall asleep at the same time, 12:30. But instead of waking up at 7, 6:45, I wake up at 9:45 because my work starts at 10. So I wake up at 9:45 and I'm still miserable. I'm like, you slept 9 hours, get up. And I'm like, oh, but I don't want, oh, fuck it, man. Don't need to attend the stand up. It's 0 to 100 for me. I cannot handle that middle part. So I'm like, stick to routine, or else you're screwed with
Yeah,
sleeping.
exactly. But I think, like, I'm pretty comfortable with my boredom. I never feel bored because there's always something going on, and most of the time I'm just following the news. I mean, even though as depressing it is, but I've been in this for like 6 years. I've When you study international security and international relations, all you deal with is depressing news. So eventually it becomes normal to you. So I
Uh,
mean, I've been following, like, there's a wonderful, not wonderful, but if you're interested in keeping an eye on how are the cases developing and where the numbers are, there's a wonderful database by John Hopkins University. And if you're interested in seeing how it's, especially it has a very good record on the US, like, if you are interested in that, that's something
oh, nice.
you can look at. It's a wonderful database, and it's always telling you how many cases there are in the world. So, like, to just for you to be safe where you are, to understand your community. Like right now, I remember last time I saw there were 490,000 cases globally. It will cross 500,000 in a few days or by tomorrow. You
By
never know.
tomorrow. Oh yeah, I follow the one by the Financial Times. That's also a database, and that's broken by country, so you can see the graphs all together, and then you see how China has slowed it down. Italy is going through the roof. But
Yeah.
one thing that was interesting for me, and then today also there was an article that I read, is how there has been relatively praises around the world about how Germany and Netherlands, to an extent, which I don't believe personally because I'm living in the Netherlands, but are handling their, you can say, the way the virus is going, because in Germany the mortality rate is at 0.4% of the population, compared to France, which is 4.3, which is compared to Italy, that's 7.3. So
And it's
Germany's,
10% in Italy.
I don't know the exact number about Italy, but these are the variation numbers I saw. So Germany's, they said the way they're doing it is they're doing it really fast. They had a mechanism set up that in Germany, if one person was tested, it was because they were in contact with the other people around, because it didn't happen exactly inside Germany. Germany is a big place, right? So they targeted the borders, they targeted those areas, the metropolises, and they really dealt it down. And Netherlands, the same thing. The RIVM, the basically the disease center ministry, they announced that the rate of cases have decreased. So Netherlands also is reaching a plateau, and now it's just all about trying to contain, flatten the curve, because we do not have the capacity to serve all the people which are actually going to get sick. It's like people are still going to get sick, but it's just the fact that now the rate has decreased a little bit, so we can handle it relatively better. But this again goes down to the fact that we don't know still how many people who have it, because here in the UK, I don't know about France, in Pakistan, everywhere around the world is the same concept. You call the hotline and they just say, even if you have symptoms and everything, just stay in the house for 14 days. If it gets really bad, only then you're allowed to come to the hospital. Unless, and other than that, just quarantine yourselves, because we do not have capacity.
Yes. I mean, when it comes to the mortality rate as well, I think it's important to understand that that varies because of the variation within the population. So in case of Italy, the reason the deaths there are very high is because Italy has one of the
The
oldest
oldest
populations in
populations.
Europe.
Yeah, yeah,
If
we
you look
had
at the
this.
statistics, it says that people who were the victims of this virus who lost their lives because of it, their average age is between 70 and 80 years old.
Easy.
So that's one of the reasons Italy has like huge numbers. Like I'm just looking at the statistics right now. There, I'm sorry, it already crossed 500,000. There are 510,108 cases in the world. Italy is at 80,000 already, and it will be crossing China soon.
Yeah, easy. And that's what I also discussed with the people on the show, that the age and the oldest population of Europe, Italy, that's one of the reasons that Italy is being hit hard, because by grouping, they have the more percentage of the whole population being old, they have the highest. But by median age, Germany actually has the oldest population in Europe. but
Uh-huh.
but but that's by median age. That's 47 years, and in Italy it's 45 years. But
Yes.
but percentage, Italy has more than, I think, 20% or 15% of the population above the age of 65 or something. So that's where the impact is having. Now, that I feel like that's a glimmering hope for us, because relatively other people, other areas of the world do not have that much of a share of older population. But now I want to bring this to the whole core of the show, which is Pakistan. Because the only reason I'm interviewing Desis abroad is just to see that, okay, you're handling it well, but you are alone and you have family back home.
Yes.
So you must be following Pakistani news a little
Obviously,
bit.
no, I've been following Pakistan since day one. I mean, I've been very very concerned because I know my country very well, and I know when it comes to the healthcare, like we both being in Europe, we know that in France and Amsterdam, sorry, in Netherlands, Germany, and US itself, the industrialized world have good healthcare systems, but even for them, they were humbled by this coronavirus issue. So when I saw that in Pakistan there were two cases in the beginning, I was like, well, okay, maybe it'll be fine. Next day, next day 50, 100, 200, 500,000. I was like, shit.
Okay, I didn't feel like that, to be honest. Just to cut you, I didn't feel like that because when I saw two, me and the guys we were discussing on the we were like, we're screwed now. If we're screwed now, because now it's going to be a domino effect because it's a 225 million population. It was bound to
Exactly.
happen.
And the biggest problem when I say is like, you Pakistan's healthcare system cannot, it doesn't have the capacity to deal with this. I think I read that in Pakistan, all of Pakistan, there are only 8,000 like ventilators or that kind of capability to deal with critical situations. And you already have, like, when people from Iran came back, because that's where it started from, they were kept in those like isolation camps, and the sanitary situation there was horrible. There were people staying in there who were not sick, and they got sick because they mingled with the people who had the disease. And then there was no regulation at that time to keep an eye on those people. And then when they went out, they further spread the disease. One of the good examples of countries who are dealing with this situation very, very well is Singapore.
I've
So
heard Iceland as well.
yeah, Iceland and Singapore. I mean, the reason they're able to handle it well is, first, they have very good governance systems, but also they have very small populations.
That was exactly my argument with
So with
Madassa as
small
well.
populations, it's very easy to deal with. But when it comes to countries like India, which is like above 1 billion, and they also imposed a lockdown of 21
Lockdown two
days,
days ago. Yes, 2 days ago or one day ago.
country, and Pakistan being about 200 million. And I mean, it scares me. I'm very, very scared about
How to
what's.
handle it, yeah. And it's just one thing that really was at first it felt shocking, but then I read up on it as well. But the way that people are lying to the government about their being tested positive and their family members trying to hide them, a lot of people were actually annoyed at them. Like there was a case in Punjab that these people, they came from ziyarat, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so they were there, and the army knew about it, the police knew about it, the government knew about it. They said, okay, we're coming to pick you up, don't go anywhere, we need to contain this virus. And their family hid them and they all ran away, and their family was supporting them. Everyone was really annoyed at, okay, hey, but I always try to look from both sides. Yes, they're wrong to do this, but look at from their perspective. They're scared, they're tested positive, they're like, oh, the government is going to take us away. It's normal human reaction to fight or flight, and you want to run away at that point in time because you're just scared what's going to happen to you. And I believe information gap and communication is the biggest problem with Pakistan, because the way we're talking is comparatively different. As you said, how Macron talked about the problem, how Trump is talking about the problem, how the Netherlands prime minister is talking about the problem, and then you see how Pakistan is talking about the problem. You do see a difference, right? You do see that they're not showing the severity, I believe, in the situation.
I would say that it's not, the fear comes because there's a lack of trust in your institutions.
Agreed.
So people in Pakistan, like, you being from there as well, how much we don't trust like the institution as well. So when you are in that situation, you fear that, if I get caught by my government, I'm better dead. So
Yeah.
there's this fear that exists within the community as well. Like there's this lack of trust as well. That feeds the fear. So that's another problem as well. So I mean, even though Imran Khan, in the beginning, people were saying that, you should lock it down, you should lock it down, but he was saying, no, if we lock down, what about the poor people? But I was I was reading reports about when Imran Khan was running for elections, and he was like, I'm going to lock down the whole country if I have to. That was so strange. Like at that time, what happened to the poor people? But now, when it's about the health and safety of the people, now it's a problem. But eventually, he came up with this stimulus package of, like how other countries like in Canada and in the US and in France, they all are doing it. So they came up with that plan as well. And the Sindh government has been doing a wonderful job with how, with Murad Ali Shah, and they had this one plan of, they locked down Sindh right away. Same happening in Punjab. But I think Imran Khan is on a different page right now. I don't know. He's probably, if he keeps going down that road, he's digging his own grave. So
Yeah, definitely. I think you were on point with that. I don't know how the Sindh government is acting so like fluidly and so fast, reacting to everything. You talked about a stimulus package. I think we yesterday with us also we were talking about this, that US introduced a stimulus package. We did not hear about Pakistan introducing a stimulus package then, but then I saw the news yesterday, and I did hear about a stimulus package of 1 trillion or 2 trillion rupees. Do you know about it? More about it? Can we discuss this, or you just know it from the top?
Well, I just know, like, it's a different it's a like a relief package that will be like helping the provisional provincial provinces, and some sectors like the disaster sectors, and giving people relief who are at the verge. But I actually don't know, like, from where that money, like what kind of money are they taking and directing towards this aid. I haven't looked into that very deeply yet. But when I'm bored again, I will probably look into it. But that was
Yeah,
my argument before as well. Like, he should have the military in Pakistan, the defense. We have spent the funny part is that we have spent. Same would go for India, that we have spent, both these countries have spent so much money on their defenses, on you know
military.
perceiving each other as enemies, and have done that. But the biggest crisis, the biggest problem is for both these countries is this coronavirus, is not Pakistan or India for each other. So if that money was spent on healthcare
Healthcare.
or other things, that at least we would have the capacity to deal with these situations. So that's what I was at least saying to, or what I was thinking, that they should have Imran Khan saying that, oh, we don't have the money, we're a poor country, but you spend billions of rupees on the defense and stuff. So you can direct that money from the budget towards this situation and deal with it. Because often when situation gets out of hands in Pakistan, it's always a coup that happens. So if he can't deal with it, I have seen the like the military is taking the upper hand. I was like, we will contain this and all. So I fear for Imran Khan that if he doesn't take the upper hand here, then he might be going down the wrong road.
Yeah,
So
but
these are opportunities for people who are actually leaders to come up and take the situation by hand. Like if you look at Trudeau in Canada, he was under a lot of criticism. He went through a lot of things domestically, but when it comes to dealing with the coronavirus, he came up with a stimulus package, a proper lockdown, and how we're going to deal with, and how he was calming the population in Canada as well. So he dealt with it, and he was able to reclaim that role of leadership. But I think Imran Khan had that opportunity to do, but I think he lacks the direction. There is someone above that he needs confirmation from, and when he doesn't get it, and then they do it, and it's like a double. I don't know what's the right word to use here. Like it's like a double game that is being played
yeah,
with
it's
him.
it's a misdirection. Yeah, he doesn't know
Yeah.
where to lead the people because he does not have the power to actually lead the people, right?
Yeah.
But that's
Because
going.
it doesn't help that you just come to TV and you say, "Yo, ghabrana nahi hai." Like, how's that gonna help anyone?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I agree with you. Like, but this is going now. Like, I don't know how that
Very
political.
political ending, yes.
Yeah, and
Like,
I do not have the knowledge to actually comment on this, so there is nothing really I
yeah,
can
okay.
do. But so like if move the conversation back towards us, and it was wonderful talking about anything and everything with you. So
Yeah.
just for some closing remarks, so what do you think? This is gonna last for a while now,
Oh,
right? In Netherlands, in June 1st, it's still official till June 1st that there's going to be a lockdown, working from home and everything. I don't know how long it's going to last in France. So how are you looking forward to the next few weeks? Do you think you'll be able to manage it? Do you think staying inside is going to make you crazy a little bit? Because in the end, we are social creatures, and we do really crave that social aspect of it.
I mean, as you said in the beginning, this 6-inch thing is a, like, how it's a curse, but at the same time, I think what might keep people rather sane during this time is these devices, because even though we might not be able to come in personal contact with people, this device allows us to still remain connected with people. So I think it's time right now for, like, if you're social, if you're isolated in your room, but at the same time you're already always connected with everyone. So, people who are, if you have friends, who you think, might not be able to deal with such things, it's, as a friend, it's your responsibility to reach out to them, talk to them and tell them you're always here whenever they want to talk. So I think I will not go crazy, because I've, as I said, since classes are going on, I have my wonderful fiance that I talk to every day. So we remain connected in that way as well. And so I think it will be, it will be okay eventually. It will take time. It requires a lot of patience, but
Definitely.
that's a test. These are the times when you have to learn what it means to be patient.
I think that's wonderfully put, because at this point in time, there's literally nothing else can we can do besides actually be patient about it, and hopefully not go crazy in the mix. You're studying, so at least you have that going on. But you did mention about the Hunters, as you recommended for your show. But just for our listeners, what are you watching extra around these days? Are you listening to something? Are you reading something? Because I know you're a reader. You have your thesis going on, so I understand that. But other than that, if you're reading any book that you find interesting, you want to recommend something to our listeners besides the ones that you already have?
I mean, when it comes to watching, I mean, there are a lot of good documentaries that they can see on Netflix. I mean, if you're interested in, like I am very much interested in World War II and Cold War history. So there are a lot of things that you can watch, that are available on Netflix or Amazon Prime. But you can always go to Putlocker as well if you don't have those. But I think reading, I rarely have time to do leisure reading, like, reading a novel or something like that. But I recommend people to, especially for my Pakistani brethren, that, read about your country, learn the history of your country. It's never too late. It's always to understand why, how Pakistan was formed, what was the reason, why it's not what it was supposed to be. So for that, I would recommend books like, there are books like, Making Sense of Pakistan or Pakistan Paradox. They're long books, but they will really help you understand, your country better.
Oh,
And other than that, I think, I like, this is something very offbeat, but I'm a Punjabi, so sometimes I go to YouTube and I watch Punjabi stage shows. They're funny comedy, and it also keeps me sane in this time. So if you're a Punjabi, if any listener out there, I would recommend that you go ahead and watch them.
oh,
They're
that's
like
wonderful. That's wonderful to hear.
Punjabi stage shows are
Yeah,
amazing.
well, it's nice to see you so upbeat, and so that you can handle this problem head on, and hopefully the positivity that you're showing can be uh, carried forward to the people who are listening to the show and do not feel that much positive about the world right now. Well,
I would just say one thing, that whatever situation you're in, it can always be worse. This thing, I remember I was talking to my friends, because all of my friends who were here, they all left and they all went back home. And I remember everyone was like very sad about how, what's happening. And all I was thinking at that time was like, guys, look, it's about, we have to suddenly leave, and how the situation is. But I was like, just think for a moment about people who are in actual war zones, like in Syria or being in Yemen, that they have to leave their homes, maybe never come back, and they don't have the luxury even to pick what they can take with them. So this could be worse than it is right now. At least you are in the, under your roof. You have food. Hopefully you do. I hope you have food in your fridge and in your closets, and you are able to live every day. I think it's a hadith from the Holy Prophet SAW, that he said that, if you have a roof above your head, if you have food, and if you have a place to be, you're one of the luckiest people in the world. So being isolated in that sense, having your own space, it's not the end of the world in that sense.
yeah,
And
I
all
do.
these pandemics and all these things, they eventually, how the curve is going up right now, but it will get somewhere. I hope so.
Definitely, but and you said that beautifully, and I do agree with it wholeheartedly. But just for the sake of it, I will push back a little bit to it because there's also another side of the coin to this, right? Always thinking that oh, look at the people who have it worse really doesn't really help you with what you're feeling right now, right?
Hmm.
Because I personally believe that's not the right way to shelf off responsibility of what you're feeling,
True. No,
right?
I agree with that. I agree with
It's
that.
not it's like, okay, people are in the war zones, yes, but I do feel something right now, and I don't want to feel okay by it just because someone has it worse. Yes, we are privileged to have food, to have a house over our head, but then that comes with privileged problems, right? Such as
Hmm.
isolation. Okay, we're
Hmm.
privileged enough to have money to party, but we
Hmm.
cannot party. That's a very stupid reason for you to feel sad about, but what you're feeling sad about, it's still legit, the emotion that you're feeling. And for that, it's wonderful that you still have a house, and you can have the luxury to pick and choose. But more on top of that, it's better to just deal with it, because the biggest problem
Yes.
that I feel people have is they don't want to deal with it. What we talked about, right? About boredom, about silence. They don't want to deal with it. They want it to be distracted. And this way, what you said is also what I feel like a certain form of distraction, because you shelf the problem away. That, okay, hey, I do feel sad, but look, there are people sadder, so I shouldn't feel sad anymore. No, you should feel sad. You can grieve, you can cry, and you let it out, because you need to accept it. You know what they say, right? If you try to search for happiness, you turn out to be less happy.
Yes.
There's a study about that, and it was shocking for
I
me.
agree. Actually, I completely agree with you. You're right. It's I mean, it's when I say it's about, it's not like shelving that responsibility, but it's about understanding that people in those situations are eventually able to make, they are eventually able to come out of it as well. So you see them as your inspiration, and you think that, I can do it too. I can also be try to be strong, use the help of my friends and my families, and have, even though hope nowadays is a hard word to say, but still have hope that eventually everything will be
Is-
fine.
Definitely, that's very well put. That's exactly what I think is going to be like as well, because everything has to end. The Great Depression did end, the Great Recession ended, the bubonic plague even ended at some certain point in time, right?
World War II ended.
World War II ended. So
The Cold
it,
War ended.
yeah, anything can end, and this is gonna end soon,
Inshallah,
hopefully.
inshallah.
And by the time it ends, and till the time it ends, you're always gonna have the Desi Dutch with you, with Asad Rafi as well, who is always gonna be available. If you guys really like him, you want him back, I do not think Asad will have a problem to come back and share his wonderful experiences. So thank you so much for
That
your
would be
time,
great.
Asad.
Oh, no, it would be great to have one where, you have all your people from all over the world coming together. That would be good as well.
I would really
For a
love to
long
do
time.
that, but I really think that's gonna become really chaotic to handle.
Right. Yes. It will be hard for you as to manage it.
Yeah, but I definitely, maybe in the closing day we can ask everyone to come together, as long as they sign a good non-compete or disclosure agreement, that they just try to be really really like helpful. Well, thank you so much, Asad, for your time. I
Wow, that
hope
was
you
very
have
quite long, but it didn't feel like it.
never feels like it to
It's,
me.
it's always fun talking to you.
Yeah,
We have
definitely.
we have so many memories of sitting together and talking to each other for hours.
Likewise, I always love to talk to interesting people, and Asad for me is one of the most interesting people I've ever talked to. So
Very nice
Asad,
to say.
thank you again for your time, and I'll
Thank
hope to
you.
see
Thank you for
hope to
having me.
yeah. And
Done.
thank you all for taking the time out to listen to us. This was day 9, and hopefully I'm going to be here tomorrow as well for day 10. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you next time.